Hello and good evening. Today it is Thursday, December 17th, 2020. And for this video today, I will be sharing my thoughts on the San Jose Sharks 1991 Heritage throwback uniform that they will be wearing for the 2020-21 season to celebrate the Sharks' 30th anniversary. So this will actually be the second time in basically the past 5 years that the Sharks have brought out this original, their original teal jersey and uniform design. Truth is, for their 25th anniversary, they actually wore this uniform as a throwback for that season as well to celebrate their 25th anniversary. And I'm pretty sure the Sharks actually, if I remember correctly, got permission from the NHL to add more games on for them to wear this uniform for due to its popularity. Fans really were happy to see the Sharks bring this design back. And I couldn't agree with them more. In my opinion, at least, this is the best design that the Sharks have ever had by far. So this will be worn for a limited number of games next season. So I want to mention some things here real quick. Obviously, there are some changes compared to when it was worn during the Reebok era 5 years ago, well, for the 2015-16 season. And number one is the fact that this jersey will be on the Adidas Adizero jersey template. Number two, it'll have the new collar design that you see there. And number three, like the last time they wore this uniform, this jersey will use the darker hue of teal that the Sharks use on their main uniforms and has been their shade of teal since they switched to the uniform design full time that back in the late 90s, which their reverse retro jersey is based off of. So also note another thing, I want to quickly acknowledge one more little thing about this jersey. And it's that the number font will be the same as their current uniforms rather than the slightly different number font from the original uniforms back in 1991. For me, that's not a deal breaker because even though I think the Sharks' current uniforms are absolutely mediocre, and my view on that includes their current third jersey too, at least the Sharks are smart enough to use a decent number and lettering font, which is a simple block font. And it does look good here too. I mean, do I think it would have been a nice little subtle throwback touch to use the original slightly different number font? Sure. But it's definitely not a deal breaker for me. And another thing I want to quickly acknowledge is that this is a photo of a Fanatics breakaway replica rather than an actual Adidas jersey. So speaking of Adidas, there's the embroidered shoulder patch. I must say, I like seeing this logo on their third jersey. And I must say, as much as I think their third jersey is really mediocre, the stealth one, at least the logos, including the retro logo done with the stealth treatment on the shoulders, actually look really good. And I have to confess, the stealth jersey is the best version of their current long-time modernized logo that they've had since 2007. Also note that, of course, now that the Sharks are wearing this in the Adidas era, they're going to be wearing an Adizero jersey, which means the jersey will have the dimples or perforations on the shoulders. So now this is a shot of the actual Adidas treated Sharks crest with the new Adizero jersey cresting technology, which that is one thing I agree with the hockey guy on about Adidas. That's really good, is their new crest technology. It is, I've got to say the new crests are actually really impressive, at least in my opinion. They're definitely lighter. And yeah, I mean, the Sharks design is going to look good, but there's some stuff I want to talk about it in momentarily. But first, here's a shot of the back of the uniform. And also note that the striping, because of the Adizero template, will now be tailored to the contours of the hem, which means that's why the waist striping on jerseys now in the NHL are warped and crooked looking. That's something I hate about Adidas, let alone the collars and the dimples on the shoulders, but yeah, no, that's just my 2 cents there. So I'm going to take a moment to show you viewers out there a full shot of this jersey. So I mean, like it was back when they first joined the NHL and back in the 2015-16 season, this uniform will look good on the ice. And on top of that, everybody's going to look at it again and go, hey, San Jose, why don't you just switch to this full time? Or at least go back to the drawing board and give us some new jerseys. I think their current home and away jerseys are so mediocre and so boring that I would rather take my chances with an Adidas modernized design for their new home and away jerseys than what they've got right now, and take my chances on it, because at least it would probably be a little bit more exciting than what they've got right now. But back to this heritage throwback, the uniform's going to look good, but I'm sure I'm probably going to be the only channel you watch talking about this uniform that has a lot of, or a major disappointment with this uniform. Now, it's a good jersey design. It's actually a great jersey design in my opinion, but most channels are not going to rant about this one particular thing, I'm sure. But I'm sorry, folks, this uniform pisses me off because of that collar. I thought, with the exception of the Vegas Golden Knights, and I think another team or two in the reverse retro jersey program that brought in stupid collar inserts or toilet seat collars, I thought that most teams were starting to recognize that, hey, the Adidas Addy Zero collars, or as I like to call them, the Addy Crap collars, are really ugly, and the only way to make them look kind of tolerable is to go with a full-styled collar. And ironically, the San Jose Sharks actually did a good job with their reverse retro jersey collar. They went with a full solid teal collar all the way around. Yet for their throwback jersey, and in my biased opinion, their best jersey, they went with a toilet seat collar. I mean, did the Sharks not learn anything from the Chicago Blackhawks when they first switched over to the Addy Zero template back in the 2017-18 season? I mean, if you noticed, Chicago actually tweaked their collars last season for a reason, because those polo shirt toilet seat collars are absolutely awful. And now, here is the San Jose Sharks putting this toilet seat collar on such a beautiful jersey. It pisses me off in terms of why the Sharks would do that. I'm sorry, but this should really annoy people that Adidas has this awful collar design, and on top of that, teams like San Jose are dumb enough to go with some ugly collar like this. And I'm going to say something else too. Stuff like this is why sometimes I have to confess, there have been times in recent months where I've actually lost a bit of interest in doing videos, because even when a team like San Jose brings out a really nice uniform, the really nice uniform has an awful collar that ruins it. Now, does it ruin it completely for me? Absolutely not. But I'll tell you one thing, folks. I'm definitely not buying an Addy Zero Sharks throwback. That's for sure. But speaking of the collar, I mean, are you telling me that the Sharks couldn't have at least done a solid white collar? I mean, what I would have done is I would have done a solid black collar with a bit of white collar piping, and I think that would have been plenty good enough. Yeah, it wouldn't have been as accurate as the original collar, which was white then black. But you know what? It's 2020, and thanks to Adidas, we're forced to deal with their awful template and their awful collar design. So at least what teams like San Jose here could do is go with a collar design that's a little bit more toned down and much nicer looking. If this collar was completely solid black with a bit of white piping, I think that would have certainly been the way to go. Now, I see why San Jose went with this design, because they were trying to replicate the original design. But you know, just because you can do something doesn't necessarily mean you should do it. That's how I feel about Montreal's blue reverse retro jersey too. But yeah, that collar is just an absolute eyesore. And you would think that teams like San Jose here would have learned something from Chicago. But no. But as you can see here, the rest of the uniform is going to look excellent. But you see what I mean about that collar right there? See how it's a nice traditional V-neck? That's something I every time. That's what I miss about Reebok. The collars actually looked great. This uniform, top to bottom, looks amazing here. It's not going to look as good with that awful Adidas collar, that's for sure. But I look at this uniform here, and every time I ask myself, man, why the hell does San Jose continue to wear their half-assed, mediocre uniforms that they've got right now? That's beyond my comprehension too. And I'm sure a lot of you, most of you, will probably agree with me on that. But also, I want to show the original Sharks jersey because there's actually one other thing that I was really hoping the Sharks would have done this time around. I actually want San Jose to use the original Pacific teal because, in my opinion, it looks way better than their darker teal that they've had since the late 90s. I have to say. The darker teal's fine, but I was hoping to see that. And another thing, too, that I was hoping to see, and it wasn't a deal breaker for me because I think the teal throwback looks excellent. I like it much more than I like the white one, to be honest. But I agree with those out there who have been saying, you know, it would have been a great opportunity to bring out the original white Sharks uniform. I mean, for me personally, I don't like the gray on this uniform. I mean, it's not a bad uniform. It still looks good, but I would prefer if they found a way to tweak this design by removing most, if not all, of the gray. Gray on white, to me, just does not look good. Obviously, that's my opinion, and I expect a lot of you to not agree. But, you know, I've seen a lot of people saying that the Sharks should just go back to their original uniforms. Now, for me personally, I think their original home or colored uniform, because they didn't wear color at home in 1991, I think this original colored teal uniform is perfect. But the logo, I do agree with people. It would be nice to see the Sharks actually modernize the original logo a little bit. Not the way that they did it with their current logo, but a little bit different. I'm not sure how I can explain it here, but that and then a new away uniform that reduces the amount of gray on it significantly. That to me would be the perfect Sharks uniforms. But yeah, I gotta say, am I happy to see the Sharks bring this design out of the vault? Absolutely, of course. But for me, that collar is a real eyesore. You know, that frustrates the hell out of me with Adidas. And it sounds like they're not changing their template anytime soon, which is an absolute shame in my opinion. But, you know, at least while we are stuck with their awful template, at least obviously that's my opinion, you know, at least what San Jose could have done is they could have done what they did here with the reverse retro and go with a solid collar. Look at how, even though that collar is a big fat ugly collar, at least it isn't an absolute glaring eyesore like it is on their 91 throwback. But I do have to say this though, between this jersey and their throwback, I definitely think their reverse retro is much better. And why? It's because they actually got the collar right and the design top to bottom looks good. Didn't think I'd be saying that, but here I am saying it. I do think the reverse retro is better. But I like that for the Sharks' 30th anniversary, they're doing a throwback to their late 90s, 2000s uniforms, early to mid 2000s to be exact, and they're doing an original 91 throwback. I think that's cool. But one more thing about the Sharks too, they are keeping their stealth jersey as their main third, as their third jersey, but they will have this reverse retro for a few games next season, and they will have their Heritage 91 throwback for 2 to 4 games as well as a designated Heritage uniform. So the Sharks will have 5 uniforms for next year. So far that's what I'm hearing. I also very well could be wrong, but with how little usage this uniform and the throwback will get, I'm sure the stealth is not going anywhere anytime soon. But anyways, folks, it's nice to see the Sharks bring that design back. I just think the collar design is absolutely horrible, and it ruins such a great uniform. That's what pisses me off about the Sharks Adidas throwback and the original 91 throwback being brought back this time around. But anyways, folks, if you have anything you want to add in the comment section below, feel free to do so. I hope you have all enjoyed this video. And until my next video, you guys, take care. And as I always say, bye for now.